All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about Tantra. Now, that's a word, it's huge, right? And honestly, it's pretty misunderstood. So today, we're going to peel back all those layers and get to the heart of what it's really all about.
So let me ask you, when you hear Tantra, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's usually something to do with sex, right? But is that all it is? Oh, not by a long shot. That's not even scratching the surface. Okay, let's just clear the air right away. This idea that Tantra is just about sex, it's a huge misconception, especially in the West. Look, sexuality can definitely be part of it, for sure, but it's like looking at one single tiny piece of a giant, intricate puzzle and thinking you've seen the whole picture. If you only focus on that one piece, you're missing out on this incredible, vast landscape. So if it's not just about sex, what is it? Well, that's the tricky part. There's no single definition. Tantra is more like a giant umbrella term. It covers this massive range of traditions and schools, and each one has its own vibe, its own beliefs, its own practices. The library analogy is perfect. It's not one book, it's a whole library full of them. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to move past the stereotypes, take a quick trip through the major traditions, find out what they all have in common, see what Tantra looks like today, and then talk about how you can carve out your own path. Ready? Let's go. All right, first things first, we're digging deeper than just the stereotypes to get to the real heart of this ancient system.
You know, this mandala is actually the perfect way to think about Tantra. See all those complex, beautiful, different patterns? They're all their own thing, but they're also totally interconnected. And they all lead back to that single, unified center. That's Tantra in a nutshell. It's a fantastic visual for it. Okay, so we've got the big picture view. Now it's time to zoom in a bit. Let's take a quick tour of the four main currents of Tantra. You're about to see just how diverse this whole thing really is. Our first stop is Kashmiri Shaivism. This one was big in India way back between the 8th and 12th centuries. And let me tell you, this path is deeply philosophical. So the central idea here is something called non-dualism. Basically, it's the view that everything in the universe is part of one single consciousness. The whole point isn't about getting something you lack. It's about pratyabhijna, which is a fancy word for having a direct aha moment of recognizing who you truly are. It's a really subtle, profound look at consciousness itself. All right, next up is one you've probably heard of, tantric Buddhism, or Vajrayana. This is the tradition that really took hold in Tibet after starting in India. What it does is weave tantric methods right into the fabric of Mahayana Buddhism. Now, Vajrayana is super hands-on. It's all about the practice. They have this amazing toolkit. We're talking elaborate rituals called sadhanas, sacred chants or mantras, and those symbolic diagrams, mandalas. And yeah, this is where sexual yoga shows up again. But, and this is important, it's not about pleasure. It's a specific technique used to transmute raw energy and speed up the journey to enlightenment. Okay, so from the very ritualistic world of Vajrayana, we're making a big shift. Our third school is the Shakta traditions. Here, the focus completely changes. It's all about devotion to the divine feminine, the goddess. So in these traditions, the goddess is the source of all energy in the universe. She can show up in a sweet, gentle form like Lalita, or a really fierce, terrifying form like Kali. And what's wild is that some of these paths use things that are normally considered taboo, the 5 M's, which can include meat, wine, and sex. But again, it's not about just indulging. It's a radical practice to face and transform desire into pure spiritual energy, all with the goal of uniting with the goddess.
For our last stop, we're hopping over to China to look at Taoist Tantra. Now, this developed kind of alongside the Indian schools, and it's built on a foundation you probably already know, the concepts of yin and yang.
This path is often called internal alchemy, which is a pretty cool name. The whole idea is to cultivate and move your life force energy, your qi, around your body. You've seen the practices, Tai Chi, Qigong, and in this tradition, the sexual arts are seen as a powerful way to balance those yin and yang energies both inside yourself and with a partner. The goal here, harmony, balance, and a long, healthy life. Wow. Okay, so we've got philosophy, rituals, devotion to a goddess, and energy work. They seem worlds apart, right? So, what's the common thread? What possibly unites all these different schools? And here it is. This is the absolute key. Underneath all that diversity of practice, you find two core principles that they all share.
First, they all see the human being as a whole. Body, mind, spirit, it's all one package. And second, and this is the game changer, they don't see desire as a problem to be crushed. They see it as the fuel, the raw energy for transformation. This quote just says it all perfectly, doesn't it? Beyond their differences, all these schools share a holistic vision of the human being and use the energy of desire as a path of transformation. That's it. That's the real heart of Tantra right there. Okay, so that's the ancient wisdom. But how did it get from there to here, to our modern world? Let's take a look at some of the people who brought these ideas to the West.
So, a bunch of different teachers put their own spin on Tantra for a modern audience. You had Osho, who was known for this really uninhibited take on spirituality. Margot Anand's work focuses a lot on ecstasy and personal flourishing. David Data dug deep into the whole masculine-feminine energy dynamic. And someone like Daniel Audier has been trying to make that complex Kashmiri Shaivism philosophy understandable for us today. Every one of them played a part in shaping what we think of as Tantra now. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the most important one for you. With all this history, this diversity, how do you make Tantra something that actually works for your life right now?
Well, here's a pretty solid framework to start with. First, do your homework. Know the traditions so you understand the landscape. Second, let yourself be inspired by the core ideas, not just stuck on rigid rules. Third, and this is big, get creative. Make it your own. And finally, don't be afraid to mix it up. Combine that ancient wisdom with modern tools, maybe from psychology or wherever else it makes sense. Because at the end of the day, this is what you need to remember. Tantra is not a museum piece. It's not some dusty old rule book. It's a living, breathing path. It's meant to be adapted, to be made new by every single person who decides to walk it. So, I'll leave you with this one final thought. If we take Tantra at its word, if desire really is the fuel for our transformation, our desire for connection, for meaning, for everything, then there's really only one question left to ask yourself, isn't there? Where are you going to point that fire?